Hi everybody, my name is Mike Hawthorne. I'm an artist and I'm here to talk to you about sequential art and how I believe sequential art should be up in the pantheon of uniquely American art forms like jazz, hip hop, and capitalism. This is a piece of Roman art. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually here to talk about drawing comic books. This is pretty much my day in one picture. I just sit around screaming and scribbling on paper, and surprisingly people pay me to do it. It's not a bad con if you can pull it off. I love this kid, seriously, look at his face. So most of what I do is world building. This was a series of covers I did for a video game called Mass Effect, which doesn't matter, but the point is you scribble long enough, eventually you get pretty good at it, and people want you to make things for them, and then they throw money at you. Who knew? This is a cover for the series I'm sort of best known for at the moment. I've been drawing Deadpool for Marvel for about 5 years now. I don't get any movie money, so don't try to hit me up for any. But it's been pretty nice, and people are pretty kind to me. So often I'm asked, how do you get a gig drawing comic books? And honestly, the easiest way to do it is just be super obsessive till you sort of hate life and you don't go out and do anything or talk to people, just draw nonstop. And you do that for about 10, 15 years. And then you have to start studying things, which was like really a bummer for me. I thought I would just draw pictures all day and stuff would happen. And then I figured out like I'm supposed to actually know how to draw things pretty good. So I started studying anatomy, which was a drag because I didn't want to be an adult. But what ended up happening though is I started teaching anatomy at a college, which was kind of funny because people now pay me money to teach them, which I should have no responsibility at all. But somehow it still happens. So there is a lot that comes into play with making comics. You end up having to study a lot more than you would imagine. This was a series of kicks done from a slow motion camera setup that a friend of mine has done for a website called Bodies in Motion. And you kind of have to learn to absorb all these things so you can draw them from memory. You combine them with the anatomy, and hopefully you can draw something like this. This was an actual page from Deadpool. You can sort of see the direct connection between the anatomy study, motion study. Oh, that's funny. Was that a voice on your camera? Oh, that's your phone. You can take the call, it's okay. I got time. You also have to learn a little bit about acting and be able to get your point across on the page without the words, or at least that's what I shoot for doing. This was another cover, and I'm also showing it to you because it's in a sequence of a couple of images to show you how comics are sort of built. This is called the pencil stage, followed by the ink stage. This is kind of a throwback to when you really needed everything to be done in line art so it could be reproduced. You don't have to ink everything nowadays. You could do it in pencil, paint, digitally, it doesn't matter. But a lot of people still work in this kind of incremental system of making comics. So another big part of this world building is learning perspective, which was like, if you thought the anatomy was a drag, this super sucks. Because like you have to do stuff like measure things and learn numbers, which I'm not super good with. But you get good enough and you start drawing things and you can sort of create a believable world for the reader to hopefully fall into and accept and get past the point where these are lines on paper and start to accept them as actual people with things happening. So you see the anatomy, the acting, perspective, and world building all together. So when I get a script in, it usually looks something like this. It's a little bit like a screenplay for film if you've ever seen one. Breaks down each panel, what the dialogue is in each of the panels. That's a unique problem to comics. I also work as a storyboard artist, but in comics the dialogue's important because you have to leave space for it, physical space on the page. So this is a layout which I don't expect any of you to be able to make out because it's like visual gibberish that only I can decipher. But this is an actual layout for a page, from a recent issue of Deadpool. Don't tell anybody I showed you. It hasn't actually been published yet. So this is that last page with, you do 2 steps. You draw the layout, then you draw this. It's super easy. No problem. So hopefully you can look at that page and get an idea for what's going on. They're in some weird, scummy place. There's a bunch of aliens, and these guys are walking in wanting to pick a fight with poor Deadpool. There's a lot of tricky things going on the page, so I have to trick you into reading the page in the correct order. Here in the West, we're in the West, right? Yeah, in the West. We read from left to right, top to bottom, so I have to kind of do a Z pattern and put things on the page that will visually sort of trick you into going in the direction I want. If I do my job well, you won't see any of the study that went into it. You'll just sort of have fun and accept all of it and get the emotion that's supposed to be coming across in each of the scenes. And then if everybody's happy, Marvel's happy, and then they give me money, and then I'm happy, and then my kids are happy. So a wise man, I wanted to have like a super wise quote, but I don't know anybody wise, so I go with Popeye. But this is pretty accurate. We are normal people, except that we draw pictures and we're sick in the head. So I actually love Popeye. He's my spirit animal. I don't know. I did include one picture just because I tend to sit around in my studio and think about myself all day. I'm my favorite subject. But occasionally I'll get a reminder of why we draw comics. So I met these 2 guys at the Marvel offices. It's Max and Zoe. Max has hemophilia, and he has a port in his chest at all times because the kid could literally die from a paper cut. I'm sorry, I'm going to go over. He started on his own a calendar to raise money for this Hearts for Hemophilia, and I was lucky enough to get to meet him. And one of the things that gets him through life is this idea of Iron Man also having a port in his chest. So he thinks of himself as Iron Man. And he's keeping himself alive just through sort of force of will, which is amazing to me because I'm super immature. But this kid is so amazing, and I was really, really blessed to get to meet him and see how our comics connect with people and mean a lot more than just funny pictures. Okay? That's it.